Hello everyone and welcome to this week's RacingBet preview show ahead of Australian Guineas Day in Melbourne, Chipping Norton Stakes Day in Sydney, and of course we also have the Group 1 Surround Stakes at Randwick, meaning there's a huge weekend, 3 Group 1s across Australia this Saturday, February 27th. We're brought to you this week by WinnersBet, locally owned and operated. Jump on winnersbet.com.au, check out their odds and make sure you have a bet with them this weekend, and we thank them for their support of this show. I'm your host Tim Geers, joined as I am every week by Trent Crebbin. Trent, you live in Adelaide, but you're making the big move across to the big smoke. You're heading to Melbourne in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I am. I'm moving across for a bit of change of scenery, new study. Hopefully be able to get out to on track for the rest of the autumn carnival over in Melbourne, and hopefully find a few winners this week.
I am sceptical whether you've purely made the move across to Melbourne just because Arcadia Queen's in town. We know how much you like her, and we know she's lining up in the All-Star Mile. We know she's probably at the top of your list of girlfriends. I reckon you might be moving across to Melbourne purely just to see her.
Yeah, well, I might have to go down to the stables where she's staying. I think she's staying with Brent Stanley. I might have to go down and see if I can get my head in the door and see if I can say hello, and then we'll hopefully be on track to see her at the All-Star Mile. And yeah, it should be a great day there.
You might be driving for a fair while to go see her. It's not exactly in Melbourne, Bendigo. It might be a couple of hours drive, but I'm sure you go to great lengths to see Arcadia Queen in the flesh. Anyway, we'll move into this week's preview show. We've got plenty to get through. As I've said, 3 Group 1s across Australia, headlined by the Australian Guineas at Flemington, and of course the Chipping Norton Stakes and the Surround Stakes over at Royal Randwick in Sydney. Trent, how are you shaping up for this week? And we've of course got Moonee Valley to get through first tonight. You reckon we can find a couple there before we get into the weekend?
Yeah, definitely. That preview should be up very shortly, Friday afternoon on RacingBet.com.au. I think there's a couple of good bets there. Particularly keen in the 955 race actually, with a first up mare who I think can really run these into the ground, but we'll get to that later.
Yep, so stay tuned to racingbet.com.au. You'll find Trent's race-by-race preview of the Valley tonight. Hopefully you can steer us into a couple. And we've also got a full preview of Canterbury on site from Josh Reed as well. So hopefully that gives us a little bit to play with tomorrow. Let's head over to Flemington. We'll start with you, Trent, over in Melbourne for Australian Guineas Day. We'll get straight into your best bets, and then we'll come back to the Group 1 Australian Guineas later on. Your best bet comes up in race number 5, and I like this strategy from you. You've gone with the West is best tactic because you're backing the 2 WA horses in the race. Those are horse number 2, Fabergino, and horse number 4, Indian Pacific. Now, there's around $3.60 and $5, maybe $5.50 available. So you should be able to back both of these runners and, at least double your money. Take us through your thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm quite keen to hedge these two, and like you said, you probably get around $2.20 for the bracket bet between the two of them, which I think is a good price. Start with Fabergino quickly. We know she's a bomb at 1,000 meters down the straight. She's 3 from 4 at the track and distance. The only miss, obviously, coming a couple of weeks ago in the Lightning Stakes, where she ran 4th, which was a huge effort. She crossed the line with Bivouac there, beaten 2.5 lengths. The only knock I have on her is that she does like her run space. So I thought that was going to be her last run for the prep and she was going to head home, but they've chosen to run her here again just 2 weeks later. So that's some query, but I guess they wouldn't be running her if they didn't think that she was ready to go. And I think that if she was fresh into this and she brought her best, she'd be close to a $2.50 chance of what she did last start and her bomb record down the straight at 1,000 meters. So I think she's clearly the horse to beat. $3.80, I think, is a luxury price. If she shows up anywhere near what she did in the Lightning Stakes, I think she'll go very close. Indian Pacific, another horse over from WA. You just got to look at some of this horse's stats to know that he ticks a lot of boxes here. 3 from 3 first up. He's 5 from 6 at the 1,000 meters. So that already tells you that he's a very quick horse. Gets in with 55.5 kilos. Brad Parnham comes over to Melbourne for a couple of weeks, I believe, to take the ride here. I just think he could be the one that's going to be really well weighted down there. He's going to be very fast down in front with Fabergino. And I just think these chasers are going to be doing a lot of work between the 6 to the 4 to even try and get into the race. And I think these two might just be able to skip away. And I think they'll be fighting out the finish over the short course.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Indian Pacific tackles the straight for the first time. Obviously, his first time over in Melbourne. He's a horse that's got, as you said, a substantial amount of early speed. Just bowls along out the front, much like Fabergino. Fabergino's probably got him covered for early speed. The interesting thing about him is that he's been gelded since his last start in the Miss Andretti Stakes. So it's an interesting move by Neville Parnham. And of course, he's then had the 6 weeks leading into his first run in Melbourne. So he's a horse that's got plenty of quality. And as you said, his stats tick all the boxes. So really looking forward to seeing how he goes over in Melbourne. He's always a horse that's, had plenty of ability over here. Interested to get your thoughts on one horse further down the field, the 3-year-old filly Muntasira for Kieran Maher and David Eustace. We last saw her running in the Coolmore Stud Stakes, beaten about 4.5 lengths by September run. Now, we obviously know that's, the elite Group 1 sprinting form in Australia after September run's effort in the Lightning Stakes, I think it was. She's probably going to be favourite for the Newmarket. The thing that kind of caught my eye here was in early markets, Muntasira has been $8 into $5, and she comes into this first up from a spell having won a trial. What's your kind of guide on her?
Yeah, she's the definite danger here. Really liked her trial. It was very good. I think there was as much as potentially even $11 when markets opened. So that price was well and truly too big. I just think she's probably into about her right price, or $5 is probably as low as I could really get her here. She's definitely the one that scares me. She's going to be charging late, and you can take a line through that 3-year-old form around Swatstat and September run with Fabagino in the Lightning Stakes. So I don't think there's a whole heap between them. It's just whether she can withstand that pressure through the mid-race that Fabagino and Indian Pacific are really going to set, and then still manage to be able to sprint and get over the top of them to that last 200 meters. So it will be fascinating. I just thought she was probably short enough now, but if you got the opening price, that was probably overs.
All right, we'll move on to your best value bet of the day, and it's a good kind of segue into some of the review pieces we've been doing on RacingBet.com.au. We've started doing these in the past couple of weeks, essentially looking back at the weekend's races, highlighting some of the key races and some of the key horses to either follow, maybe forgive, or to sack completely. This is the first week we probably see some of the horses coming out of those articles. There's a number over in Sydney, which made mention of in my review piece a couple of weeks ago. And one of the horses you put up as a horse to follow, Trent, was Maha Amadeus. And you've made him your best value bet of the day in race number 6 on the card at Flemington. This is horse number 9. He's currently a 30-1 or 40-1 chance. Take us through your thoughts there.
Yeah, I really liked his run first up over 1,400 meters. The stakes race. He was behind Regards Marie, who's flying, and Buffalo River, who he meets here again. Now, Buffalo River's the dominant favourite, and I think he deserves to be. We hard to beat. But Mohammedaeus ran the fastest last 400 and 200 metres of the entire meeting there, which I thought was very impressive for a horse at 1,400 metres, where he normally gets over a bit further, up to 2,000, 2,400 even. He's got a really good second up record. He's got 3 wins from 6 starts when he's second up. His 1,600 metre record is also quite good. I think he's got 2 wins from 6 starts there as well. You only have to go back, it was a while ago now, but he did run a really good race. He ran second to Homesman at 1,600 metres, second up in a Group 2 Fian Stakes a couple of preps ago, and he beat home a couple of the horses he meets here, beat home Surprise Baby, 50 Stars, those likes of horses. So I think he's definitely got the talent, and I think gets him with 55 kilos here, draws nicely, and he's clearly come back a very good horse, and that second up record really entices me to have something on. Like you said, you're getting about $8 or so for the place. I think that's a bit of a crazy price there. So I think he's a good value chance.
All right, we'll leave you there and we'll come back to look at the Australian Guineas in just a short while. But we'll skip over to Ranwick and go through my best bets on the card. We'll kick off in race number 8. This is my best bet on the card. Is horse number 10, Great House. Now, this is a European import who has had 2 starts in Australia. His first one was at Flemington back in January, and that was over the mile, and he worked to the line nicely. He then came to Sydney, stepped up to 2,000 metres, found a soft track, and he absolutely dominated the field. It was a very impressive performance. Coming from back in the field, he really put the race to bed very quickly and put about 3 lengths on his nearest rival. He remains at 2,000 metres here. He's likely to get another wet track, and although he does draw wide in barrier 13, I think he can win again here. I think he's definitely a horse to follow throughout the autumn, particularly as he gets up in distance. Trent, you were mentioning off air that you'd love to see him contest the Sydney Cup, and I'm not sure which way he will be heading after today, but certainly in a race like that, you would think he probably could be competitive if he keeps improving like we saw last start. The main danger, of course, looks a horse down the bottom, number 13, Skylab. He's been impressive in his past 2 wins. He does step up to 2,000 metres for the first time. He's also likely to be back in the field from barrier 9. I'm just leaning towards Great House. I just think he's proven at the distance. We know he's going to run 2,000 metres. And look, if he takes any more improvement out of his second run in Australia to his third run here, he's going to be mighty hard to beat. He's currently around $2.50. I think he's quite clearly the best on the day at Randwick, and I will be betting accordingly. That's race 8, number 10, Great House. Now, one of the Group 1s on the card is the Group 1 Surround Stakes. This is race number 7 on the card. I've made one of these horses my best value bet on the day here. It's race 7, number 7, Never Talk. Now, this is one horse that I did highlight in my review piece 2 weeks ago. Her run in the Lightfinger Stakes was just terrific. She came from back in the field. She didn't get a whole lot of luck, and she flashed home to be beaten very narrowly on the line by Mark Newnham's filly, who I forget the name of. I think she meets her again here. Trent, you might be
Every
able to,
Rose.
Yeah, you might be able to help me out. I think
Every
you tipped her
Rose
that day, didn't you?
Yeah,
but
$34.
Never Talk's run in that race was very good. Beaten and nose, as I said, she ran the fastest last 800 of the race. I think it was the fastest last 800 of the day at that particular distance. And if you look back through her form, she won 3 starts ago on a heavy track. She then was luckless 2 starts ago. I've talked plenty about her run last start. And I just think in this field, she meets plenty of the same horses. She's going to appreciate the step up to 1,400 metres. We know she handles a wet track. And I just think there's a number of horses not ideally suited here, like the likes of Montefilia, first up from an Oaks campaign. Away game, I think, is, her best racing's been done as a 2-year-old. I don't think she's necessarily come back that well as a 3-year-old. Dame Giselle is probably the other one in the race I'll look to be backing. I backed her first up from a spell. I'll probably stick with her and have something else here second up, knowing that the Snowdens will have her absolutely spot on for her grand final, or not necessarily a grand final, but a Group 1. They'll have her spot on for this. Hungry Heart, the jury's out. And then, the next interesting one I want to get your thoughts on, Trent, is La Mexicana. She's certainly one that you've had plenty of success with over in Melbourne. And the Kevin Hayes Stakes we have seen has been a race that's lined up well for the Group 1 Surround Stakes up in Sydney. So can you just give us a little guide on La Mexicana?
Yeah, she's a very good wet tracker. So the more rain you get, the more she's going to be suited there. 1,400 meters, I wouldn't think is any issue. One run at 1,400 meters, she sat right on a very strong tempo. Was only run down late by Hindam, who was a good winner there. She's going really well. I thought she got every favour last start with Jamie Carr kind of sneaking up the inside, but I think she's got good tactical versatility. Tom Marquand takes the ride over from England, so that'll be fascinating to see. I think she will go forward from barrier 10, and like I said, any rain around is really going to suit her. She's probably in the mix, but it's difficult to line it up against those Sydney fillies for sure.
Yeah, it definitely shapes as an interesting race, but yeah, I thought the $8 or $9 bet Never Talk was a terrific each way bet here. Filly on the up, she's already had 5 wins from 8 starts, and as I said, I thought her run in the Lightfinger Stakes was probably the best run of the day at Randwick, so I'm going to stick with her here in the Group 1 Surround Stakes. That's horse 7 in race number 7, Never Talk, currently $8 or $9 with Winners Bet. We'll move on to the other Group 1 on the card, which is the Group 1 Chipping Norton Stakes. This comes up in race number 6, and fascinating little contest. We saw a number of these horses go up against each other in the Apollo Stakes a couple of weeks ago, and a number of them made, the review piece I also posted on RacingBet, the likes of Very Elegant and co. Trent, I'll get your thoughts on this race in just a minute, but we see the matchup again of Colette versus Very Elegant, and I think the key to this race is going to be what the track's like. If this track, stays around a soft 7, I think obviously Colette and Very Elegant are the horses to lean to. If it dries out and we're somewhere around a good 4, then Colding's probably the horse you've got to give serious consideration to, being probably a better firm tracker than the other 2 mentioned. I'm leaning towards Colette on top here. The other key to this race is the speed map, and probably we're going to see the roles reversed here between Very Elegant and Colette. Of course, in the Apollo, we saw Colette basically box seat, get a split at the 200 and accelerate away to win. Very, Very Elegant sat back in the field, and she ran home in the fastest 400 metres of the day, I think, on that occasion. So her performance was still good. On this occasion, Colette draws out a little bit and Very Elegant draws well in barrier 4. So the speed map's going to be really interesting here. I'm personally hoping Colette goes forward, but I'm not convinced they will. But in any case, I think if the track's wet, this is one of the best wet trackers in Australia. She's undefeated on her wet tracks. Provided the track is wet, I'm going to stick with Colette on top to roll Very Elegant here. I think Very Elegant, probably up to 2,000, third up from a spell, is when she's likely to be peaking. And that's when I'll look to be backing her. I think one of the little bit of value in the race is actually Funstar. The jury is certainly out on her, but as I was mentioning to Trent, to you off air, she's had 4 starts, second up from a spell for 3 wins and a second placing. She's got a very good record in the wet, and there's absolutely no tempo in this race. So there's every chance we could see Funstar roll forward to lead, in which case I think she'll be right in this race at double figure odds. Keen to get your thoughts here. Which way are you heading in the Chipping Norton?
Yeah, I found it quite tough. I think it's really track condition dependent. I thought Colding was a good chance in the Apollo first up, but it probably just got a little bit too wet for him. The wheel started spinning late when Colette came off his heels. So if we got into that soft 5 kind of range, I'd probably have him on top because he's got that kind of, he can go forward from barrier 2. Other than that, I think Very Elegant's probably the horse to beat. I just think she's going to be better suited stepping up to 1,600 meters. Big respect to Colette, but I thought she got every favor in that run first up. Although, if we are on a soft track again, she's clearly come back very well and can keep progressing. And yeah, Funstar, I just don't think she's quite up to these. Like most of her wins or her good runs have been in 3-year-old grade. So I wouldn't think she's quite up to these. Master of Wine's probably the other one that, he didn't really fire much last prep, but he's clearly got quite a bit of talent. So it wouldn't shock me to see him come back as a better horse in the autumn.
Fascinating race, and Funstar certainly is approaching, is it a horse territory? The jury is out on her, but yeah, if she's ever going to be going close in a race like this is when it will be. So anyway, interesting to watch unfold. And as I said, it'd be very key to pay attention to the track conditions. And the other fascinating thing is to see what happens with the speed map. We'll shift back over to you, Trent. Australian Guineas Day at Flemington. It's time to get stuck into the Group 1 on the card there in Melbourne. You're with 3 horses at double figure odds here. You're shooting wide in the hope of a roughie salutes here. I'll pass over to you to take us through your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a very open Australian Guineas. It's very tough. I think the main lead up, the CS Hayes won by Tagaloa, is probably the main lead up to focus on. I think he's your favourite at around 380 or so. He's definitely the horse to beat here. That win was very good. He gave weight to all the field, sat on speed, and still managed to run the fastest last 200 meters. And it kind of all the sectional pervs and the ratings pervs are gushing about the win. It rated very highly on the clock. So he's the horse to beat, but I'm just not sure about him. I think he's going to have to work quite a bit early from barrier 10 and stepping up to 1,600 meters. I think there's a couple that were first up in that race that could potentially turn the tables. So I'm with a few horses here. I thought number 4, Cherry Tortoni, was one of the runs of that race in the CS Hayes when finishing 4th. Is 2.5 or so lengths off Tagaloa. Got a long way back, kind of sliced his way through the field and ran some really good sections. Probably just peaked on his run a little bit over the last 100 meters, but that's to be expected. He was first up there. The barrier draw wasn't kind to him here, drawn out very wide. He's going to have to go back and try and circle the field here, but he races well at Flemington. The 1,600 meters is definitely going to suit, and I think he's come back a better horse than he was in the spring. So I think he's a good each way chance also at around $12, $13. The other one of ones in that race was horse number 5, Dom to Shoot. I thought he was a good run in that race. He went back as well and tried to circle the field. He ran on, I think he ran the fastest last 800 of the race or so, and probably again just peaked on his run a little bit late after doing a lot of work through the mid sections. I think stepping up to this distance range is definitely going to suit. We saw he ran 3rd in the Kingston Town at weight for age level, and that was key when he actually drew a gate there. He was able to be put into the race, and most of his other runs in WA last prep, he drew wide and kind of had to go back. But when he drew a good barrier, he was able to settle much closer. I think he can do that here from barrier 7 with Pike taking the rise. I think he can lob into a much better spot, and I think he'll be really strong late as well. The other one that I wanted to spec as well at around $21, $26 or so was number 12, Jet Propulsion. Comes out of a different form race behind Poland in the Autumn Stakes, which was run at a brutal tempo there, but he's had 3 weeks between runs now, which I think is definitely going to suit. The step up in trip's definitely going to suit as well. And I thought he had a bit of scope to improve. He's only had the 5 starts. Most of them were in Sydney, and he ran good races behind the likes of Peltzer and Mwanga as well. So I think that different Sydney form could line up well here. And I just thought he's one that can go forward as well and potentially settle on speed. So with the right run, I thought he was one that brings different form that I thought could run a race at around that $20 mark.
Take us through your thoughts on Ole Kirk. Obviously, a lot made about his returns this preparation. He's arguably stuck in the worst part of the track, I think, last week. Comes here on the quick backup. How do you see him from barrier 15?
Yeah, not really sure what to make of him. I thought his run first up, it was probably a weaker race, has been by rocketing by in that English sprint, but he still ran quite well, getting a long way back and charging to the line. Just not sure what to make of him last week in the futurity. Yes, it was against, some of the best weight for age horses that we have. And yes, he was on the worst part of the track, but he still really dropped out late. He was beaten 6.5 lengths there. Has to come here on the backup, draws wide. I think he's probably going to get quite a long way back from barrier 15. And I heard talks around this being potentially his last race before he retires to stud. So it's just not sure how well he's come back potentially. And they're just having one last throw at the stumps with him and then maybe not going to risk him anymore. So I thought at his best, he'd go very close, but I'm just not sure if he's at his best at the moment.
Okay, and another one high up in the market, Zoo Dancer with our mate Jay Carr on board. She's just winning everything at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think she'll be winning this. I thought she was too short here. She looked very good last start in the fillies race. It was over the same track and distance on the same day as the CS Hayes for the boys. And I just don't think she beat much there. She personal ran on to second, probably not fit enough once further. And the rest of the horses behind her are kind of barely Saturday class horses, kind of that BM70 grade. So I thought she was made to look a lot better than she was. She was flattered a little bit there. And the time didn't quite stack up with the CS Hayes on the same day there. So I thought, $5 or so was short enough. And there were quite a few I'd actually rather back in front of her out of that CS Hayes.
Okay, so Cherry Tortoni, Dom to Shoot and Jet Propulsion, the 3 for Trent in the Group 1 Australian Guineas at Flemington. The good news is William Pike, he wasted no time getting stuck in last week at his first meeting back in Melbourne. Three Group 1 rides for a win and 2 second placings. So he's certainly returned in the right frame of mind and hopefully can do the job for you again here on the West Aussie. That wraps us up for this week. Any parting thoughts, Trent, on any of the other racing this weekend?
No, it should be great. I can't wait to get stuck in, and we'll see you again next week.
Beautiful. I'll have my best bets. In fact, the full preview for Ascot uploaded on RacingBet. Just wanted to focus on the big Group 1 meetings at Flemington and Ranwick on this week's preview show. But you can find my Ascot preview on Saturday on the RacingBet website, along with, of course, our full race-by-race previews of Ranwick, Flemington, and Josh will be covering Brisbane once again. Canterbury tonight, Moonee Valley tonight. It's just full on these weekends, Trent. Plenty of winners to be found. And hopefully we can keep providing the goods for our viewers and our readers. Thanks to WinnersBet for sponsoring this week's show. Make sure you jump across on winnersbet.com.au and check out their odds and have a bet with them this weekend. And all the very best. It's going to be a fantastic weekend, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week.